this episode, we focus on a very specific danger that shows up right at the moment when everything feels almost finished: hallucinated conclusions. In everyday conversation, an AI system might produce a confident sentence that sounds plausible even if it is not fully supported by facts. In an audit report, that same behavior becomes a serious risk because audit reporting is supposed to be defensible, evidence-based, and precise about what is known and what is not known. When auditors use AI to draft language, summarize findings, or propose recommendations, there is a temptation to accept well-written text as if it were automatically true. That is how hallucinations slip into official work, not as wild science fiction claims, but as small inaccuracies, missing qualifiers, incorrect dates, or implied certainty that the evidence does not actually support. For brand new learners, the key idea is that the writing stage is not a safe place to relax. Reporting is where the audit's credibility is made public, so it must preserve the evidence chain even if AI is helping with phrasing, structure, or readability. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Hallucinated conclusions in audit reporting can take several forms, and recognizing them is the first step to preventing them. One form is invented facts, such as claiming a control exists, a policy requires something, or an event occurred when the evidence does not show it. Another form is misinterpreted facts, such as summarizing a document inaccurately or flipping the meaning of a requirement. A third form is overgeneralization, such as taking a sample observation and presenting it as universal, like saying approvals are never documented when the evidence only shows missing approvals in a subset of cases. A fourth form is false certainty, where language implies a causal relationship that was not proven, like saying a control gap caused a particular incident when the audit did not establish that link. These are dangerous because they can mislead executives, unfairly damage trust with teams, and weaken the audit's defensibility under challenge. Preventing hallucination is therefore a quality and integrity goal, not a technical preference. A strong way to prevent hallucinated conclusions is to keep the evidence chain visible in the writing workflow. That means the audit team should treat every report statement as either an evidence-based statement or an interpretation, and it should be clear which is which. Evidence-based statements are things like what the policy says, what records show, what approvals were missing, or what monitoring reviews were not documented. Interpretations are things like what risk that creates, how severe it is, and what remediation should address it. Both belong in a report, but they must be written carefully so readers can distinguish between observed facts and professional judgment. When AI drafts a paragraph, it often blends these without labeling them, which is why human review must actively separate them. A beginner-friendly mental model is that facts are bricks and interpretation is mortar. AI can help place bricks neatly, but the auditor must ensure the bricks are real and the mortar is honest. Another strong prevention approach is to use constrained drafting. Constrained drafting means the auditor provides the AI with a limited set of verified inputs and asks it to draft only within those boundaries. For example, the auditor can supply a short list of verified observations and ask for a clear paragraph that explains them, rather than asking the AI to write a full finding from scratch. This reduces the chance that the AI fills gaps with invented details. Constrained drafting also helps prevent subtle drift in meaning, because the AI is less likely to introduce new claims that are not in the input. The human still reviews and adjusts, but the risk surface is smaller. Beginners often assume the best use of AI is to generate from nothing, but in auditing, generating from nothing increases hallucination risk. The safer pattern is to draft from verified facts and then refine. Language choice is also a core control because hallucinations often hide in words that imply more than the evidence supports. Words like always, never, proves, and cause can be too strong unless the evidence is truly comprehensive. Even words like confirmed and ensured can be risky if what you actually have is partial evidence or incomplete documentation. A careful audit writing style uses precise qualifiers when needed, such as in the sample reviewed, based on records provided or evidence was not available to demonstrate. These qualifiers are not evasions. They are accuracy controls that keep the report honest and defensible. AI drafts often remove qualifiers to sound confident and smooth, which can make writing more readable while making it less accurate. Human reviewers must therefore pay special attention to certainty language and ensure it matches the scope and strength of evidence. The goal is not to sound timid, but to sound exact. Another common hallucination risk is mixing up context across systems, time periods, or versions. If an audit covers multiple models, multiple environments, or multiple releases, a draft can accidentally attribute a control gap found in one place to the entire program. It can also confuse dates, such as describing a remediation action as completed when it was only planned. This risk increases when AI is used to summarize multiple sources at once, because it may merge them into a single narrative. Preventing this requires clear referencing in work papers, such as identifying which observation belongs to which system and which time period. It also requires disciplined writing that keeps findings scoped and avoids broad claims unless you have evidence for that breadth. A helpful check is to ask, for each key statement, which system does this apply to and what evidence supports it. If that answer is unclear, the statement is a candidate for hallucination and needs revision. Recommendations are another place where hallucination can appear because AI may propose remediation that sounds reasonable but does not fit the organization's reality or does not address the actual cause. For example, it might recommend adding a control that already exists, or it might suggest a complex technical fix when the real issue is unclear ownership and inconsistent enforcement. Recommendations must be tied to the finding's cause and must be feasible and verifiable. To prevent hallucinated recommendations, auditors should write recommendations after the finding is validated, not as part of the initial drafting. They should also confirm recommendations with their own understanding of the organization's processes and constraints. AI can help phrase the recommendation clearly, but it should not invent what the organization should do without being anchored to the cause and control environment. A well-phrased recommendation that is misaligned to the real problem is still a weak recommendation. Review and quality assurance are the strongest defenses against hallucination because they create a second set of human eyes focused on accuracy. In an AI-assisted reporting workflow, reviewers should have a specific checklist mindset, even if they do not use a literal checklist. They should confirm that factual statements are supported by evidence, that scope is accurate, that certainty language matches evidence strength, and that interpretations are reasonable and clearly framed as judgment. They should also confirm that sensitive information is handled appropriately, because AI drafts can accidentally include more detail than necessary. Peer review is especially important when AI is used heavily, because it is easy for one person to become blind to polished text that reads well. A second reviewer is more likely to spot a subtle leap, a missing qualifier, or an unsupported claim. In auditing, this is not an optional extra. It is a control that protects the report's integrity. Another powerful technique is deliberate contradiction testing, which means actively looking for ways a statement could be wrong and then checking the evidence. If the draft says approvals are missing, the auditor asks whether approvals might exist in another system or format. If the draft says monitoring is ineffective, the auditor looks for records of review and response that might contradict that claim. This does not mean trying to disprove everything. It means preventing overconfidence by searching for counter-evidence. AI can actually assist with contradiction testing if used correctly, such as asking it to list plausible alternative explanations for an observation. The human then validates those alternatives through evidence review. This approach keeps skepticism alive and reduces the chance that a single narrative becomes the report simply because it is well written. For beginners, the key idea is that good auditing includes actively testing your own conclusions. It is also important to consider how report readers will interpret the language, because hallucinations can be created in the reader's mind when wording is ambiguous. For example, a sentence might imply that a model is unsafe when the auditor actually meant that safety testing evidence is incomplete. That difference matters, and it can affect decision-making and trust. Clear writing prevents misunderstanding by stating exactly what is known and exactly what is missing. In AI audit reporting, This often means emphasizing evidence gaps when they are the core issue, rather than making claims about outcomes that were not directly measured. This approach is both fair and actionable because it directs remediation toward building the evidence and controls that support safe operation. AI drafting can sometimes blur these distinctions by making the language more dramatic or more assertive than intended. Human review should therefore focus not only on factual correctness, but also on interpretive clarity. Finally, a safe AI-assisted reporting workflow treats AI as a writing helper, not as an author of conclusions. The auditor supplies verified facts, chooses the framing, and sets the boundaries of what the report will claim. The AI can then help translate that into clear paragraphs, consistent tone, and executive-friendly language, while the human checks every key claim against evidence. This is the opposite of asking the AI to generate findings and then trying to retrofit evidence. The evidence must lead, and writing must follow. When that order is respected, the risk of hallucinated conclusions drops dramatically. When the order is reversed, the report becomes vulnerable to confident, unsupported statements that can damage credibility. Audit reporting is not the place for creative filling in. It is the place for precise communication. Utilizing AI to enhance audit reporting without hallucinated conclusions means building controls into the writing process that protect accuracy, scope, and defensibility. You keep the evidence chain visible, separate observed facts from professional judgment, and use constrained drafting so the AI writes only from verified inputs. You watch for certainty language that overstates what evidence supports, and you prevent context mixing by keeping statements scoped to the right system and time period. Recommendations remain tied to causes and feasible controls, not to generic best practice language that sounds good but does not fit reality. Strong human review, contradiction testing, and clarity checks are what keep polished text from becoming polished misinformation. When done well, AI makes reporting clearer and faster while the audit remains grounded, fair, and defensible. That is how you gain efficiency without losing the trust that audit reports depend on.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.